What if I told you that the very bowl of soup you've trusted for comfort all these years could quietly raise your blood pressure, weaken your kidneys, and even shave years off your independence? Would you still reach for that can in your pantry tonight? By the time most of us reach 60, the odds are already stacked against us. Did you know that more than 80% of older Americans consume too much sodium every single day? That one habit alone drives stroke risk up by 61% and heart failure by nearly 45%. Add to that the reality that 1 in 3 seniors is battling high cholesterol and 1 in 5 is developing kidney disease, and suddenly something as simple as a comforting bowl of soup doesn't look so comforting anymore. And here's the part that troubles me most: the soup industry knows this. It's a multi-billion-dollar machine that sells us nostalgia in a can. They rely on our trust, our memories of Mum's kitchen, while quietly loading those cans with sodium, MSG, and preservatives because it's cheap and profitable. What looks like love in a bowl is often a slow leak in your health. But here's where it gets interesting. Not every soup is your enemy. In fact, when prepared the right way, certain soups can lower blood pressure by double digits, cut the risk of cardiovascular death by almost a quarter, and even slow cognitive decline by nearly 30%. Imagine that something as humble as a warm bowl could become medicine for your heart, your brain, and your longevity. That's why in today's session I'm going to walk you through the 4 soups you must never touch after 60 and the 3 soups you should welcome into your kitchen like daily prescriptions. Every example I share is grounded in research and real patient stories, because this isn't about theory, it's about choices that can shape whether you live strong at home or spend your later years in a hospital ward. So as we begin, I want you to think about this. Which soup do you trust most right now, and are you sure it's truly helping you? Hold that thought, because what I'm about to reveal might surprise you more than anything you've heard about food and aging. Let me start with the bowl that looks the most innocent, but hides one of the darkest secrets. Creamy canned mushroom soup. On the surface it feels safe. It's the base for casseroles, quick lunches, and it probably reminds you of Sunday dinners from childhood. But inside that can is a storm waiting for anyone over 60. Here's the reality: the average serving packs over 800 milligrams of sodium. And let's be honest, who eats just half a can? That's nearly half your safe daily limit in a single sitting. For aging arteries already stiffened by time that sodium works like sandpaper scraping and tightening until blood pressure shoots up. A 2019 study in the Journal of the American Heart Association showed seniors with high sodium diets were 68% more likely to suffer cardiovascular events compared to those who kept salt under control. And the creaminess: don't picture farm fresh cream. Think hydrogenated oils, modified starches and preservatives. These create hidden trans fats, the kind that drive LDL cholesterol higher and higher, clogging arteries like grease in an old kitchen drain. The older your kidneys and liver, the less able they are to flush these additives. Over time that means fatigue memory, fog-swollen ankles, and a body that feels heavier even when the scale doesn't move. I'll never forget Margaret, a 70-year-old widow who leaned on canned mushroom soup as her easy go-to lunch. Month by month her blood pressure climbed, her kidneys started to strain, and only when she switched to homemade did her numbers stabilize. That switch was life-saving. Convenience today can cost dearly tomorrow, and mushroom soup isn't the only comfort that quietly erodes your health. In fact, the next soup takes things even further. It disguises danger under a layer of melted cheese. Now let's talk about onion soup. It carries this reputation of being hearty, rustic, even a little sophisticated when you see it bubbling under that golden blanket of melted cheese in a restaurant. The onions themselves, they're not the enemy. Onions are loaded with antioxidants that can actually support your heart. The problem is what happens once they hit the pot. Most onion soups are built on buttery bases, salty broths and mountains of cheese. A single restaurant-style serving can top 200 milligrams of sodium and more than 20 grams of saturated fat. That's like eating half a stick of butter with a salt shaker on the side. For a 65-year-old artery that's already stiff, that combo isn't warming, it's gasoline on the fire. Research in the Journal of Nutrition, Health and Aging found seniors who consistently consumed high-sodium meals had a 64% higher risk of hypertension-related complications within 5 years. And when you add layers of melted cheese, you're not just raising blood pressure, you're accelerating plaque build-up in vessels already narrowed by age. I think of Harold, one of my patients, 68. Every Sunday he'd treat himself to onion soup at his favourite cafe, thinking it was a lighter option compared to fried food. Within months his cholesterol spiked, his ankles swelled after meals, and his doctor explained that his healthy choice was overloading his system more than a burger ever could. He was stunned. That's the danger with onion soup. It looks like a hug in a bowl, but for older bodies it's more like a slow squeeze on the heart and brain. And if you think that's concerning, wait until you see what happens when a superfood like beets gets concentrated into soup. It's a double-edged sword many seniors never see coming. Beets, They've been celebrated for decades as a natural way to boost circulation, lower blood pressure, and add colour to your plate, so it's no wonder beetroot soup has this reputation of being vibrant and almost medicinal. But here's the part most people over 60 never hear. Too much of a good thing can turn on you. Beets are naturally rich in nitrates. In moderation, those nitrates relax blood vessels and improve blood flow, but concentrate them into a soup, serve big bowls day after day, and the story changes. Aging kidneys simply can't process the overload the same way younger bodies can. Nitrates turn into oxalates, and oxalates are the compounds that form painful kidney stones. A 2018 study in the Clinical Journal of the American Society of Nephrology found that high oxalate diets raised kidney stone risk by 70% in older adults with impaired kidney function. It doesn't stop there. Beet soup is often finished with sour cream or thickened with butter. What started as a colourful health food ends up as a calorie-dense, fat-heavy bowl that stresses both the cardiovascular system and the liver. And then there's the red urine called beeturia. It's harmless in most cases, but in seniors it can look alarmingly like blood-creating anxiety and even unnecessary medical tests. I remember Irene, 71, who added beet soup to her diet believing it would strengthen her heart. Within months she was struggling with recurring kidney pain only to learn her daily superfood routine had contributed to stone formation. What she thought was healing her was quietly harming her. That's the double edge of beetroot soup. It promises vitality but often delivers strain. And if you think that's the worst disguise, just wait until we talk about spinach soup. It looks like the ultimate superfood in a bowl, but what happens when spinach meets cream and butter is something no senior should ignore. Spinach. If there's one vegetable that carries the crown of superfood, it's this one. You hear spinach and you think, strong bones, iron, vitality. So naturally, when it's blended into a creamy spinach soup, most people assume they're making a smart choice. But for older adults, this bowl can be one of the most deceptive traps on the menu. The issue isn't the spinach itself, it's the chemistry that happens once it collides with cream butter, cheese and salty broth. Spinach is loaded with oxalates, and when oxalates meet dairy, they bind to calcium. Instead of helping your bones, the calcium passes right out of your system. A 2020 study in the Journal of Bone and Mineral Research showed that some seniors with high oxalate intake faced a 34% higher risk of osteoporosis-related fractures. Imagine eating spinach to protect your bones, only to have it quietly accelerate bone loss. Now add the sodium. One bowl of cream of spinach soup can hit over 1,000 milligrams of salt, nearly half of a senior's daily safe limit. That much salt stiffens blood vessels, drives up blood pressure, and forces the heart to work overtime. Add the heavy fats from cream and butter, and you have a perfect storm for clogged arteries and stressed kidneys. Paul, 68, thought he was trading fast food for a healthier lunch when he ordered spinach soup from his local cafe. Within months, his blood pressure spiked. His kidneys showed early strain, and bone scans revealed thinning. The very soup he believed would shield his health was slowly undermining it. So let me be clear. Creamy spinach soup wears the costume of health, but behind the mask, it weakens. Bones burdens the heart and chips away at independence. But here's the good news, not all soups betray you. In fact, the right soups can become daily medicine. Let's turn to the bowls that heal. After hearing about the dangers hiding in creamy, salty bowls, let's flip the script. Not all soups take from your health, some actually give it back. And one of the best examples is a bowl you might only think of as a starter in a Japanese restaurant, miso soup. On the surface, it looks light, maybe even too simple to matter. But miso soup is more than just a warm-up before sushi. It's fermented, and that changes everything. Fermentation turns ordinary soybeans into a living pharmacy of probiotics, antioxidants, and peptides. For aging bodies, this process does what no can of processed soup ever could. It strengthens the gut balance's immunity and supports healthy blood pressure. In fact, a massive Japanese cohort study published in 2017 found that seniors who ate miso soup regularly had significantly lower risks of stroke and heart disease, with reductions as high as 26% in women. That's not a small edge. That's the difference between fearing the next decade and stepping into it with confidence. I once worked with Helen, 72, who had battled digestive trouble for years, bloating irregularity, that uncomfortable heaviness after meals. Her doctor suggested cutting processed foods and adding more fermented ones. Within weeks of sipping a small bowl of miso soup each evening, she noticed smoother digestion and a steadier energy. What she didn't see, but her blood work proved, was even more powerful: lower cholesterol, reduced inflammation markers, and improved blood pressure readings. Now, not all miso soups are equal. Instant packets that line grocery shelves can still pack too much sodium, which undermines the benefit. The key is moderation. Prepare it fresh, keep the salt low, and pair it with simple add-ins like tofu and seaweed. Done right, this humble broth becomes one of the simplest daily rituals for protecting arteries, calming digestion, and even keeping the liver steady. It's ironic, isn't it? While canned soups quietly strip health away, Miso soup proves that the right fermentation can build it back, and if you think tomatoes are just a side for sandwiches, wait until you see what happens when you turn them into soup, the kind that can actually act like a prescription for your heart. If miso soup is the quiet healer, tomato soup is the bold defender. Most of us grew up with it paired with grilled cheese on a rainy afternoon or as a quick luncher from a can. But here's the part many people overlook when it's prepared the right way. Tomato soup becomes one of the most powerful allies your heart and arteries will ever meet. The secret lies in lycopene, the antioxidant that gives tomatoes their deep red colour. Lycopene isn't just another nutrient on a label, it's been studied for decades for its ability to reduce oxidative stress inside artery walls, slow the oxidation of LDL cholesterol, and keep blood vessels flexible. And flexibility is exactly what aging vessels need. A large study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition showed seniors with higher lycopene levels had a 26% lower risk of cardiovascular disease compared to those with lower levels. That's nearly a 1 in 4 drop in risk from a food that costs pennies per serving. I think of Raymond, 70 years old, who swapped his canned cream soups for a simple homemade tomato soup, simmered with olive oil and garlic. Within months, his cholesterol profile improved, his doctor noted steadier blood pressure, and he told me he finally felt lighter after meals. It wasn't a miracle pill, it was a pot of tomatoes on the stove. Here's the kicker, cooking actually makes lycopene more bioavailable. Unlike most vegetables where cooking strips nutrients, tomatoes become more powerful once heated. Add a drizzle of olive oil and absorption improves even further. But there's a catch. Boxed or canned tomato soups in the supermarket often contain 800 milligrams of sodium per serving, wiping out the very benefits you're after. And powdered instant mixes, even worse hidden sugars, preservatives and artificial thickeners that aging bodies struggle to process. The lesson is simple. Fresh tomatoes, a slow simmer, minimal salt and a little healthy fat. That's the recipe for turning a childhood comfort food into a prescription strength tool for vascular health. So far, we've seen fermentation heal and antioxidants protect. But what about the simplest soup of all? The one so light it almost looks plain yet powerful enough to lower deficiencies, boost immunity and even balance blood pressure. Let's talk about vegetable broth. Sometimes the simplest option is the one we overlook. While creamy soups feel indulgent and tomato soup looks vibrant, a clear bowl of vegetable broth might seem too plain to matter. But don't let appearances fool you. For seniors, vegetable broth works like a tonic, light, cleansing and surprisingly powerful. Why? Because it delivers the basics our bodies need most after 60 hydration electrolytes and antioxidants without the heavy load of salt, fat or additives. Think of it as fuel for cells that are tired of fighting against processed foods. A 2019 clinical review in Nutrition Reviews found that seniors who consumed daily vegetable-based broths had a 31% lower risk of micronutrient deficiencies. That meant stronger immunity, fewer hospital admissions and better resilience against illness. The potassium in vegetable broth also balances sodium, naturally lowering blood pressure. Carrots and celery contribute antioxidants that protect artery walls from oxidative stress, while garlic and parsley add compounds that fight inflammation and support circulation. It's not just soup, it's prevention in a cup. I'll never forget Arthur, 76, who struggled with bloating and fatigue after years of heavy canned soups. When his daughter began preparing a simple broth every evening, parsley, onion, carrots, a splash of olive oil, he noticed fewer stomach issues and steadier energy within weeks. Even his doctor was surprised when his blood pressure readings improved without adding another pill to his regimen. And here's what makes vegetable broth so versatile: it can stand alone as a healing drink or serve as the foundation for other nutrient-rich soups. You can sip it warm in the evening, like tea, or use it as the base for lentils, beans, or leafy greens. Unlike powdered mixes or canned shortcuts, it never overwhelms the kidneys or heart. It's ironic, isn't it? The soups we think of as special often weigh us down while the plainest bowl restores balance. That's why vegetable broth earns its place at the very top of this list. We've seen the bowls that steal health and the ones that restore it. Now it comes down to choice, because every spoonful can push you closer to decline or pull you back towards strength, clarity, and independence. We've covered a lot today, and I want to bring it all together for you. By now you've seen how something as simple as soup can either quietly chip away at your health or help rebuild it from the inside out. Creamy canned mushroom, onion, beetroot, and cream of spinach soup, they wear the disguise of comfort, but for aging hearts, kidneys and bones they're closer to a slow poison. On the other hand, miso tomato and vegetable broth show us the other side of the story. When prepared the right way, they don't just fill your stomach, they lower blood pressure, protect arteries, strengthen immunity, and even slow down cognitive decline. That's the difference a spoonful can make. Here's the truth I want you to remember. After 60, your body doesn't play by the same rules it used to. Salt hits harder, fats linger longer, and your organs simply can't clear the overload the way they did in your 40s. But that doesn't mean decline is inevitable. It means every choice matters more. You don't have to overhaul your entire diet overnight. Sometimes it's as simple as swapping one soup for another. Think about that for a second. One bowl at lunch could raise your risk of hypertension, while another bowl at dinner could lower it. One recipe could strip calcium from your bones, while another could help protect them. Every spoonful is a fork in the road toward fatigue and hospital visits, or toward energy, strength and independence. And that choice is in your hands every single day. I say this not just as a doctor, but as someone who's watched patients transform. I've seen men and women in their 70s and 80s light up when they realise it's not too late, that with the right habits they can turn the clock back on their health. And if there's one message I want to leave with you, it's this: age is not the enemy. Neglect is. So here's my advice. Start small, swap out one processed soup for a homemade broth this week. Experiment with miso or tomato soup instead of grabbing a can off the shelf. Listen to your body. And most importantly, share what works with others, because someone you love might need this reminder even more than you do. Now I'd love to hear from you. Which soup on today's list surprised you the most? And do you have a recipe of your own that you swear by? Drop it in the comments. I read them, and your story might inspire someone else to change. If this video gave you value, do me a favour, hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next health tip. And save this video, because the next time you're staring at a grocery shelf, you'll want this information at your fingertips. Soups can be comfort in a bowl, but after 60, comfort should never come at the cost of your health. Choose wisely, and your best years are still ahead of you.